Fisher in the Alamac Manta just cannot shake off his great rival, and his lead could evaporate with a simple puncture. With this kind of pressure from behind, Bertie is really trying. The Sydney Meeke prepared car has run faultlessly, and with Fisher's bogey stage Fanet now finally behind him, his first Donegal victory is looking more possible by the mile.
Welcome along to Krunching Gears. This is the second season of Krunching Gears, and I would just like to start by thanking all the guests who appeared in season 1 and to all the listeners who downloaded the podcast over the past 6 months. The response has just been truly fantastic. This series will hopefully continue in the same vein. This episode is dedicated to Bertie Fisher and, of course, Mark and Emma. All their lives was tragically cut short and after the terrible accident in January in the year 2000. So many of the guests I spoke with in season 1 all had great things to say about Bertie, whether it was his generosity, his sportsmanship. After 20 years, his memory still lives strong in Irish rallying, and no doubt will continue for many years to come. And where better to start than from a few words from Bertie Fisher himself. This was Bertie speaking to RPM a few days before the 1991 Circuit of Ireland.
This week, Bertie prepares once again to tackle the circuit, one rally which he's yet to win, and the successful steel business he's built up in the heart of Fermanagh has to take a temporary back seat. The girders being welded here will soon be supporting a Belfast office block, but the chairman of the board has built up quite a support of his own in more than 20 years of rallying.
Well, I did the circuit first in 1969 as a navigator, as it was called then, or a co-driver, for a very good friend of mine who still in fact does the odd rally, Ernie Campbell. And I went with Ernie in a Mini as co-driver, and in fact I did that 2 years on the trot, and the second year I had probably the worst experience of all in that doing what was maybe supposed to be the easy job in the car, and managed to get him lost. And I think we've probably even retired as a result of that.
So what was your first car that you actually drove on the circuit?
My first car was in the Minis. I did the circuit, I think, in 1970 in a Mini Cooper, and we eventually got round the rally and finished and so on, and that was the first go, and I had a succession of Minis, I think, and in the early 70s.
So when did you really move into competitive machinery? Was it with an Escort?
Yeah, the Group 4 Escort, and I finished third behind Penty Rickle and Billy Coleman. And sort of after the Escorts we moved into Opel Ascona, where we finished second overall, and then into the good old Manta days. Manta was a very, very good car. It was very, very suitable and well developed, you know, for the Irish roads. And we had some very, very good results in the Manta days on the circuit.
And of course you switched to the Sierra Cosworths, but I don't think you liked them very much.
No, my first outing with the Cosworth didn't turn out to be really what I expected. It was a car which was owned by Ford, and I never really got to grips with the car, and I think maybe didn't try hard enough to get to grips with it. But no, we only had that car for 1 year, and then moved on to the BMWs.
But in spite of winning the Tarmac Championship in the BMW, Fisher still felt the car wasn't powerful enough and didn't have enough grip in the wet. So it's been sold to Bill Connolly, and a new four-wheel drive Sierra has been selected for Bertie's Circuit Challenge.
I'd like to thank everyone who's contributed to these episodes in memory of Bertie. They've been so given of their time and their memories. In this first episode, I speak with Sydney Meeke, Ivan Fisher, and first of all, Austin McHale. First, I started off by asking Austin about his first memories of Bertie.
Well, Ken, the early memories of Bertie, God rest him, was probably in the late 70s. We were rallying RS 2000s, and Bertie was, we were spectating. There was a couple of years between us, and first time really seeing Bertie was when he was in the RS 2000s, but my major memories of him was in the RS 1800. That was back in 1982. And the first time that really we came up in competition really against Bertie was that year in the Ulster Rally, and it was our first year in the Group 4 Chevette at the time, and you know, it was part of the British Championship round. You know, all the British lads over, etc., and Bertie won the rally.
That's right. Yeah.
Which was a huge thing for all the Irish rally supporters, and huge for us. We were lying second, third behind at the time. I think we finished up. I don't know where we finished up eventually. We had some road penalties, etc. But that was really the start of getting to know Bertie in the competition, and as a good friend and a very competitor.
Yes. So I then, you know, from you went on from the Chevette, then you're both in Mantas at the same time, like the same spec cars and all that. So that must have been quite spectacular for the two of you.
Yeah, it was really. I suppose when we were the Chevette, and Bertie was in the Escort, and then we both moved to Mantas. We had a very good, hard-fought battle probably in '83 in Donegal, and you know, part of obviously Galway and all the rest of the rounds we were outside, but Donegal in particular was the launch of Bertie's new Manta, and we had a huge interest in the Manta because at that time we were negotiating with Dealer Opel Team Ireland, and Bertie was getting Dealer Sport Northern Ireland together, so it was going to be two how would you say, Opel assisted teams on the island.
Okay,
you know,
yes.
Which is very good. You know?
Yep.
And in Donegal that particular year, Bertie was leading early on and leading comfortably. We dropped some time with the gearbox or something like that, and he was leading fairly comfortable. But with the new car, there's a lot of things he had to do to get it to handle properly, etc.,
Right.
Putting it back in, and it was on the typical Fanad stage, which has been unlucky for him and maybe lucky for us over the years. But we went off into a farmyard and we got away with it, and I was over this crest into a 90 right, and Bertie clipped the bank into a wing off the Manta, which nobody liked to see happen.
No.
The new car, we definitely didn't, because with the, as I said, trying to get our whole show together for 94. But, you know, that was really the start of it. We felt very sorry for him, and a conversation after it, and in comparison to what the Manta was going to go, and there was huge interest. Like, obviously, we were watching what was happening. Sydney Meeke was doing his car, and they was going to be doing ours shortly afterwards.
Yes.
And you know, this the friendship and the competitive started from there, really. So following on, like, that was sort of 83, and then there's obviously 84. On the championships, and the Circuit of Ireland was always the big one, because the Circuit of Ireland, you'd have the Irish Championship lads, and you'd have the British Championship lads coming over, and you know, we'd always be sort of class the Bertie with Dealer Sport Northern Ireland and Dealer Opel Team Ireland, be sort of a close association there. And the main thing to do was to try and beat the British boys anyway.
Yes.
So that was very competitive that year in '84, and unfortunately we went out and Bertie went out. We went out 2 stages from the end. I think Bertie went out in Sally Gap, or thereabouts in Wicklow in '84. But you know, the following the years, you know, we had really good years in the Mantas. And then unfortunately Bertie had the brake caliper
right in Galway.
In Galway, I think it was about '86.
Yep.
And he took a few years off from the sport, or maybe 18 months off from the sport. It was about a hassle with insurance and safety, and you know, just to prove the man that Bertie was. You know, he was into the sport, he's into the competition, he's into the rallies, but always wanted to make sure that the rallies were going to be run safely and properly.
That's correct.
That was the other end of it as well, which a lot of people probably don't appreciate.
He was prepared. It was 86 Donegal, and he came back and he done safety officer that year then too. So
86 in Donegal. Donegal was the first rally that was back in that time there because there was an insurance problem.
Yes.
And Donegal was a guinea pig with Matt Doherty, really, to try and get the sport and get motorsport back on the road and get rallies back on the road here, you know, to get them back onto the stage, to get the insurance, etc. So Bertie and Austin Fraser, they did the safety for the Donegal rally, and it went successfully, thank God, and there was no problems, and it got the whole thing show back on the road for everybody again, you know.
That's right, yeah.
Which an awful lot of competitors, you know, afterwards, you know, would have really appreciated what time that everybody put into it for funding and everything else to get the sport back on the road in them years, you know.
Yeah, because and then Bertie then obviously got the bug as well too, because he made a comeback then in '87.
He did, yeah. But you know, like, I mean, it was I said to you when you know, in the sport, and he obviously wanted to make a comeback, and he made a comeback. I think it was 87, as far as I can remember. But I think he actually won Donegal.
He did. He finally got that. Suppose off his back.
It would have been always very competitive. Like, and it wouldn't be just competitive, really, with the two teams, with me and Bertie. But then you had the families as well, and you had Mark and Emma. Wouldn't be too far off Aaron and Carolyn's, which is my son and daughter's age.
Okay.
A few years between them, you know, in the service areas, and obviously, of course, Roy was there as well, and Burns would have known Gladys and that, you know, over the years, you know, like the motorsport that time was very close to a lot of a circle of people, you know, and to be honest, the thing when we get the likes of in them years of the Mansions that we get to Killarney, you know, on the Saturday evening, we're looking forward to have a pint or two, you know, and in Killarney when we get there, and to see how we're the British competitors, and that time there's a lot of them even European.
Oh yeah.
You know, with the Audis and the RS 200s and all the other competitions that was going, you know. So, but it was always the thing that them years that we'd have.
Yeah, it was kind of an end of season.
The rally, or you know, if he won the rally, there was no begrudgery, and okay, on the stages.
Yes.
Every second would count for it by the description. But it would be very competitive. But that's it. When after the stages, it was over. The competition was over, and you know, you'd enjoy afterwards.
Yes, the kind of Killarney, I suppose, it was that end of season thing, and you could kind of relax after.
When Killarney, like, obviously was down in Bertie was very competitive in Killarney. Yeah. You know, I think he actually won Killarney 6 times in total.
That's correct. Yeah.
You know, and with the Circuit of Ireland, and that being based in the early years in Killarney. You know, it was very good, and it's the whole, when it was a long circuit, like, I think the last long circuit was probably about 98, I think that time of year it was based into Waterford. But, you know, in Killarney, like down the west coast or the east coast and back up, maybe into Donegal or whatever, and, you know, it would be good and really enjoyable. You know, and you'd be always sort of, you know, plugging for the Irish entries.
Of course, yeah, definitely, yeah.
You know.
And then just just moved on then from the Mantas, but just went down the 2-wheel drives here. But then
the Mantas were sort of coming to an end. Probably to an extent, even though they're still very competitive. But with the I think the dealer sport and with the Opel Ireland not being involved, I had to look at something else. And obviously the M3s were very competitive in Europe, and we're after winning. I think it's Patrick Steyer's after winning the Manx. So, you know, I was actually talking to Bertie when the rally says, "What do you think about these M3s?" and etc. So he was thinking the same as me. So, you know, we decided. I'm not saying we decided there and then that we go both for M3s, but we ended up getting M3s, and both the cars were prepared by Pro Drive. Run by Pro Drive in the first 2 rallies. The first one was in first 3 rallies, actually. I think it was Galway was the first one, then the circuit, and Donegal.
Okay, right, yes.
And that was Donegal. We had them. We started in the M3s. I think it was about 89, and the big head-to-head was, I suppose, was really in Donegal, which I don't know. I can't remember what Bertie won in the M3s before that. I think maybe he won. Did he win the Ulster or something?
Yeah, that was I was at. Yeah, I just
I can't remember
no,
exactly,
yeah,
but I know he got good results in the M3s.
Yes,
and or in the M3, and that was. But then the battle in Donegal was
that was something else. Yeah,
he had Vincent Bonner. As I said earlier, obviously the match was still very competitive, but it was between Bertie and us. It was only seconds.
I don't think there was only like something like 8
seconds one way, 3 seconds another way, etc., etc.
I think 8 seconds covered just most of the first 2 days, wasn't it? It was something ridiculous.
It was very competitive, and then the pro drive lads decided to change tyres or something for Bertie, and he dropped 10 seconds or 1 minute, which is 10 seconds road penalties.
Okay.
And it ended up after three days of hard competition that we were won with the road penalties. We had beaten them by 1 second, So, obviously, I had no issue if, for any reason, that the road penalties were going to be banned or anything. It didn't matter. But and I think he felt the same way.
Yes.
If they stood, they stood. We won the rally, and if they didn't, he won the rally.
Yes.
And we both felt that way, and that's the competition was there. Obviously, for the 3 days. Every second or every half you could get counted, but when it came to the end, that was it. What it would be.
I think you stepped out of the car, you shook hands, and that was it. So.
And that was it. Yeah. And obviously, I think in the Ontario on that Sunday night was more than champagne drank.
And more than one bottle too.
There would have been a lot of sore heads on Monday morning.
I could well imagine. Yeah. So,
and a lot of the stuff with Bertie and us, they have to go back to the start before you go too far away from the Mantis.
Yes.
Austin Fraser was with Bertie in them years.
True.
Austin
Yes.
was a real gentleman. And Christy Farr was with me. And Christy would be very quiet, etc. And he'd be himself and Austin were very, very good friends as well.
Okay.
Which made the friendship very good between the four of us.
Yes.
if it's the thing that you'd be doing a recce or doing whatever on the Ulster or wherever the recce's would be at the time, that they could meet that evening for by teas or whatever.
Of course, yeah.
And it was always cracked about everything else and whatever was going on.
Yes.
So.
It was a good match. The four of you just clicked well together.
Yeah, it was a big thing with Austin. Austin was Austin, and they got on very well with Chris. Not they didn't get on with nobody else, but they did as two co-drivers. They had a lot in common. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they understood each other. So so then into the early 90s, then you went your separate ways again. Then
we saw the M3 before Donegal in 1990, and I can't remember before Donegal in 1991, and I think Bertie had gone. I think he went to Sierra.
He won 4x4 Sierra at that stage, didn't he?
Yeah, he got the 4x4. I think we got the 2-wheel drive Sierra, but obviously the competition was still there, and I kept up. So it moved on. He sort of then went to Pro Drive. He stayed with Pro Drive, back to whichever, and with the Subarus, and we went to Toyota, and the whole thing starts up again. We got to Toyota in '92, and Bertie was in Subaru in '91, '92, I think it was, and then the battle recommenced. We were in the Celica, and he was in the Transit, and the Legacy first, and the 1993 Legacy, so we had the first one battle.
Yes.
Right to the finish, and I don't know I can't remember what Bertie won in the years the Legacy, but he won a few rallies. I don't think
that's right.
Won in Killarney, and
Killarney and Donegal, and I
think he won the Legacy. I know he 2 or 3 wins in the Legacy in them years, but it was excellent competition,
and as a silly question, did you compare cars? Like, did say like there was good points in the Toyota and there was good points in the Subaru? Or?
Well, there would be. We'd be always making comparisons. The Subarus were always well known. There was a lot of homework done on them, a lot of development done on them for British rounds, the tarmac here, etc., because it would be concentrated a lot on the British Championship.
Yeah, for like McRae and Burns.
The privateers here for for sales and that sort of thing, whereas Toyota were not.
Okay.
They were based in Cologne in Germany, and we do a lot of the development, suspension wise, etc. But you know, yes, Toyota gave us a lot of help, and like Bertie was always saying, them Toyota seen bits of pigs.
Yes.
Very hard to get them to hand properly, especially the Corolla at the end. But you know, we would make comparisons, and you know, when you be heading into bad wet weather, you know, like some the Monday nights and stuff like that, and the training on the Circuit of Ireland or the likes of Galway, when conditions and handling the tyres are very important. Yes, we would make a lot of comparisons. What's the best tyre to use? What do you think?
Yes.
Or, you know, like, I mean, even things that, you know, like the spectator stage in Galway. We often walk the stage a mile and a half together.
Yes, I've seen there's photographs about there of you.
Like that, you know, and it wouldn't be in, you know, it wouldn't be sort of any secrecy.
No.
You know, you want to use wets or slicks or, you know. I always remember one year it's actually the first year we won the championship in Cork in 1983. And Bertie had the new Manta, and our lads, that time we were allowed with the chase cars.
Okay.
And just a torrential shower of rain, coming really heavy thunderstorm of rain, and we got changed from slicks onto wets. And we arrived at the start of the stage about a minute and a half maybe behind Bertie. He walked back and says, "Where did you get them? How did you get them?" And he was sitting at the start of the stage on pure slicks. So anyway, the conversation was fairly good. But,
yes.
Just the way the competition was at the time, he was on about it's too dangerous to run the stage, and it'd be unfair advantage when the COC came on the scene and said to me, "Was it like you're geared up for the stage to win the stage?" I said, "No, it's not. It's not a level playing field for everybody." I said, "We got the tyres changed legally, and there's no problem. We got changed. We've seen the rain coming, obviously. We've seen and our lads were carrying the wet, so." They agreed to cancel the stage. I said, "I have no problem cancelling the stage," and like he'd think the same way himself, you know.
Yes, he would have done it the same for you.
The other way around, and I was looking to get this stage or whatever on safety aspects, and you know, like it would not be. But that would be the way it would be, you know.
Yeah, the hard rules ahead, as they say, isn't it? So.
Yeah. It would be like, I mean, you know, we always to win a stage or to on a level playing field is what the whole thing was.
It was more important than trying to gain some kind of unfair advantage as such. Yeah. So like we always think about like the '98 circuit. Like that was some battle that the two of you had, you know. So.
Yeah, the nine. Yeah, there was a lot of water on the bridge in between that. You know, the '98 circuit dropped in our favour, but I can say before that. There was a lot of events that dropped in Bertie's favour and went his way, and he got the results and got the championships and got the wins in Killarney and the Donegal and all the rest with us, you know. But that was really a battle from the word go, and I suppose really at the start is we dropped a bit of time earlier on with problems with the car, but then we were coming into control of someplace outside Belfast, and these marshal, for the best of their wisdom, called Brian Murphy was with me then into the control early, and called him in, and he went in, and said when in early, they're calling him in, so when he went in, they tried to penalise him for arriving early, you know. So, which didn't go down too well with us, or didn't go down with Brian anyway. Yes. And obviously, so it was 22nd penalty, you know, when. Bertie was actually, I think he was in the row in front of us at the time, so like, I mean, obviously, I said what was going on here, so I said, "Don't worry about it, it probably won't be." At the finish of the rally, it probably won't count either way anyway, you know, so whatever. Yes. So it was the penalty was left sit, and we were coming out of, probably I think it was Waterford, that we were still fairly well, a couple of minutes maybe behind, but we had Bertie down to 25 seconds. Going on to Hampton's Folly, which is the last stage. Yes. And our lads, it was the opposite to getting the tyres changed, I said to you, in Cork. Okay. Bertie got changed to intermediates because it was starting hailstones and rain, and our guys didn't make it. They got lost, so we missed it. So we were still at the start of the stage on slicks, and the slicks were completely gone. The cameras were beginning to come out, and so we had to change the footwells to the back. And the bow Bertie gave us a hand to change the tyres around, you know, and that's the way the competition was. And that was it. But then as soon as the flag dropped, that was it. And, we went 12 tenths, to be fair. It was either, we had no choice, either get the result or finish for a second. So 26 seconds off Bertie, we couldn't believe it ourselves.
Yes.
Either in a way. But then there was obviously had the finish was back in, I think it was Bangor that year.
Okay.
And the UAC, the best of their wisdom, decided to try and still nail this 45 penalty that they had earlier on.
Okay.
And, which didn't work. Should have never been implemented, and they had to do the prize giving down in Cala in Dublin. Like, so
like it was
a week after,
a week later or whatever. Yeah.
You know, but when the penalty was taken out, we'd won the rally by a second.
Right.
But
like after whatever 4 days of tough stages, like 1 second.
First man on congratulating was Bertie and St. Down Champagne.
Right.
Myself and Rory, and obviously Brian Murphy was with me in years, and then Bertie got his win the following year. So I said,
yes,
we better send up a crate of champagne for this. He had a great win that year. I think Andrew was actually second in it. You know,
that's right. Him and Andrew were nip and tuck, and then Bertie.
That was the year that we had probably the last rally really in the Sydney was over. Backwards into it.
Yes.
To photographers and that, you know, it's a high-speed accent.
That's
you know,
right.
But, you know, that's the way that went, and that was the 99, I'm sure.
That was Bertie's last one, you know, and that was his. That was his last win, and I think 98 was ours. We lost a lot of interest in the sport after that. Reading me personally, then with Bertie's accident and that in the family. Yes.
Mark and him, as I said, Roy and Gladys. We knew the family well, and you know, it would be always after events or prize givings and we'd be there, etc. The fact that the Mark and them was close enough in the years to Aaron and Karen, you know, made it all harder.
Yes, of course it did. Like as you say, when you're on the stages, like every second counted, but like away from it, like. There was, you know, the real friendship was there. What is your standout memories of Bertie Fisher, the rally driver, and Bertie Fisher, the man?
Well, I suppose the rally driver, you have to be straight up. He was so competitive. He would never leave any stone unturned to be competitive. He'd always be very fair. He would have everything to perfection in the car, tire-wise, etc. No more than what we would or I know would do. As Bertie Fisher was always a gentleman. I went edge on it earlier on. As regards with the insurance problems, etc., he had more about the sport or more interest in the sport than just competition to get the sport back on tracks. But then when he started doing some work down in Dublin, obviously he contacted me for different things, etc. I won't go down that road, but we organised to go for him when he was getting set up his business here, etc., etc. But I always found him very honourable and straight and decent person, and the whole family as very respectable people.
And isn't that, like, you can't ask for much more than that? So
well, you know, I think a lot of people know me. I talk just straight and what I believe, and you know, that's definitely the way I felt about the Fisher family.
Yeah. Well, Austin, thank you very much for taking the time to join us and give us your thoughts on Bertie Fisher.
No problem, Kevin. Thanks for it.
Thank you now.
But with the leaders, the friendly rivalry doesn't stop outside the rally cars.
No, you can have good fun without any rivalry as such, you know. We're both having a fairly clean run. We could swap in seconds really all day. And so far, neither of us are having any problems really.
You have a bit of time to make up on this, man. Can you catch him?
Well, I'm going to keep trying anyway. I keep the pressure on Bertie. I think we've had 10 seconds road penalties. And,
be careful what you say now, Austin.
If we take that away, there's only 3 seconds between us. And I think after 10 stages, that's the difference of only 3 seconds, you know. So it'll just give you an idea how close it is.
And DeMuth is left to uphold Audi honours. But the German's coming under increasing pressure from Fisher, about to make it a clean sweep for Opel. The closing moments of this epic rally, and Brooks, co-driven by Mike Broad, is set for an historic win. McRae and Ian Grindrod survived their last-minute dramas to finish a disappointed second, little reward for a gallant drive, while Bertie Fisher and Austin Fraser underline Opel's dominance, making it a 1-2-3.
Next up is Bertie's brother Ivan. I started off by asking Ivan what it was like growing up in the Fisher household and what sparked Bertie's interest in rallying.
Well, that's maybe a long time ago for me to remember, but you know, going back, we grew up in a two-story house. Basically, there was 4 boys in the family, mum and dad and 4 brothers. And in the early years, we had an uncle lived with us for quite a while, and then he moved out. And in the later years, we had a cousin also lived with us who worked in the office. My uncle had worked in the workshops with my dad. I suppose as regards where the motorsport end started, my first memory of motorsport was whenever the old Circuit of Ireland, the old 5-day Circuit of Ireland, would have passed through Ballymalard quite regularly.
Right.
There was a man at that time who was a competitor in the event, a man called Brian McCance. Now Brian was a steel traveller for a company where my dad bought all the steel, and we would have known Brian quite well. And whenever the rally was passing through, every year that Brian was competing, he stopped off at a house just down from us where his cousin lived.
Okay.
And we were always invited down at that time to get looking around the Mini Cooper S, and sort of having known Brian, and Bertie would have had quite a few dealings with Brian over the years. So that's really my first memory. Brian, just incidentally, Brian McCance was Neil McCance's father.
Ah, right, yes.
So that's my first memory of rally cars, really. And obviously Bertie's as well. That's probably where the introduction came from. I suppose in later years, then there was a couple of what we called at that time, there was a couple of go-karts came about the place. Bertie would have had a kart. At that time, there was a bit of kart racing going on over at St Angelo, over at the airfield, and Bertie got a kart from a Church of Ireland minister who was very competitive at the time, a Reverend McMurray Taylor. And the kart came about, but the kart with an engine in it didn't really last that long around the place. So I have very early memories of Bertie towing me around the yard in this kart with a grey Ferguson tractor on a very long rope, and sometimes the rope got very long, so there was an odd accident. But and then I suppose then maybe Bertie, or the first memory of Bertie actually rallying was whenever Ernie Campbell asked him to co-drive in the Circuit of Ireland one year. And that was his first memory of me of Bertie rallying. I also recall the Ern Safari rally, which was probably his first rally as a driver. He done that in a green Mini Cooper. I think maybe he was number 79 on the night. Now at that time, the Ern Safari rally was probably a night navigation with a few stages thrown in as well.
Oh, okay, right, yes.
So it's going back quite a few years, but you know, motorsport and motors in general was about for quite a long time around the house.
Yes. Whenever you were the age then, Bertie was already competing at that stage. Did they encourage you to start competing? I know you co-drove for him a couple of times, did you?
Yes, once actually. Back in the old Enniskillen Motor Club Permapost rally. I think it was 1977, maybe in a Red Mark II RS 2000. Registration of that car, I think, was KIA 2220. It was a fairly popular, fairly well-known car at the time. So we competed in the Enniskillen Motor Club rally, and at that time it was known as the Permapost rally. Now, the Permapost rally is what's now the Lakeland Stages, as you know.
Ah, right, yes.
Where it got the name Permapost, the rally was sponsored by Ballycassidy Sawmills,
Yes.
At that time, Ernest Kidney, the Kidney family owned the sawmills, and the Perma Post was a very, very renowned fencing post at the time. Still is today, actually, and the rally was called the Perma Post Rally. Clearly remember Ronnie McCartney. Ronnie McCartney was running number 1 on the road. We were running number 3, and Ronnie beat us by 1 or 2 seconds on the day.
Right.
But it was a great experience at the time. I probably was maybe 16, 17 years of age at the time. I just don't remember. Maybe not even as old as that. I suppose if you do the sums, I probably wasn't as old as that. But the first stage of the rally was run through Castlecool Estate in Enniskillen.
Okay.
And the last stage was Castleard State Forest Park. And to be able to use those stages, at that time was great. But you wouldn't. Event organisers just wouldn't stand a chance of getting through those stages today.
No.
Really, really good stages.
Yeah. That must have been magic. At your age, to be doing that just must have been the RAC rally nearly now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. No, it definitely was a big experience now, and something I'll never forget.
And then, Bertie always went on, to some of the most iconic cars in Irish rally. Did you ever sit on with them in any of them tests, in any of them cars?
Oh, we did. I would done quite a bit of testing over the years now. It probably wasn't all legal, but we done it anyway. It was done at some ungodly hours of the night and morning. But yes, I remember sitting on a few tests now. So I do certainly do. Locally, in fact, we've done quite a bit of testing locally, and if I was ever up at Sydney Meeke with them, up at what was known as the Bush Performance Centre then. It then moved on to be known as Sydney Meeke Motorsport. We've done quite a bit of testing up there as well, and I suppose maybe the one run that sticks out in my mind as regards testing was a run in the M3 BMW.
Oh yeah,
it's a great car. It was up over a local old Circuit of Ireland stage locally, known as the Mullet Mean Enniskillen Rugby Club Road. And it was probably quite late on at night, maybe even early in the morning, whenever a lot of this was taking place for obvious reasons. And for some reason or other, we met a police car driving the stage in the opposite direction. So immediately then we reverted back onto the alternative road book and returned to service, let's say. In later years then, I suppose, when I got my driving license, there was multiple weekly runs up and down the road to Sydney Meeke with, bringing cars up or lifting cars or bringing parts up, and then that led on to being sort of becoming maybe slightly more involved in the service crew area. We had back in those days, we had some very strange types of service vehicles and service barges. There was Mark II Cortina Estates, and there was a couple of different variants of service trailers built over the years. I remember one trailer being built to go servicing on the Circuit of Ireland, and this trailer was built maybe in 2 or 3 days and fully kitted out and had a wheel rack on top of it. And Sydney and I were towing it with a Triumph 2.5 PA overdrive. So that was a great experience out of Sydney Meeke on that motor. And then when Sydney would get tired driving, I would have done a bit of driving in the car, and it was one car I always remember driving, like this button that you could flick on the top of the gear stick, and it just all of a sudden give you another gear. It was a big car to drive.
Yes.
And then after that we moved on, we went up market, then we moved on to a Nissan Blueboard estate with a tyre rack on the top of that. So no, they were all good times, they're all really fond memories now, I have to say.
Yeah, there's definitely been some buzz at that stage. So
yeah.
Your mum and dad must have had great pleasure in Bertie's success. They were often captured at the ramp there by RPM, or as you were alluding to earlier there about the Raleigh stopping in Ballinamallard. You know, they're always out there cooking the breakfast for the crews and all that. Must be very special for the family, that.
That it was, yes. Yeah, I have to say, you know, Mum and Dad was always they were always very fond of the rally. You know, they definitely were.
Mm-hmm.
They endorsed anything Bertie done at Motorsport. They were fully behind him, and as you said there, Kevin, you know, catering at the Ulster Rally was a big thing then for raising funds for the local churches and that, and
mm-hmm.
you know, whenever the cars came off that Mullock main stage, which I alluded to before, you know, we were just about 3 miles from the Mullock main stage, and the cars came off the end of the stage and straight down into Ballinamallard and into the yard for service and breakfast, and
mm-hmm.
It was all good fun, and you know, it brought a great buzz about the village, and you know, kept a lot of people involved in the sport. It was good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, you know, they were really enthusiastic. They were just really both were real Bertie fans. There's no question about that. Like.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. And your dad always get the wee drink of champagne as well too.
That's right, indeed. Yeah. Funny, just something's came into my head there now. Just I remember one Donegal, one event. I can't remember whether it was the first or second Donegal that he won, but things was going well on the Saturday night, and I came home on the Saturday night with the intention of if Bertie ended up winning the rally, that we would bring them down to the finish ramp in Donegal, because you know, you often went to these finish ramps and maybe when you got there you got a bit of disappointment that the rally hadn't went to plan.
Right.
But anyway, we got the call on the Sunday. It was looking pretty good that he was going to win the event, so we headed off to Letterkenny from Ballinamallard, which is probably 50-55 miles maybe, and something you should be doing in an hour and 15 or 20 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes probably back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my wife Hazel in the back of the car, and my dad and Mum and I was in the front, and we were going down over some very bumpy roads, you know, down through Castlederg and across the mountain into Castlefin and over to Convoy, and used to come out onto the main road up beside Jimmy McDade's garage there. But every 15 minutes in the back of the car, Hazel was saying, "Ivan, you may slow down. These bumpy roads, is, you know, I can't hack these bumpy roads." And then the next thing you'd have Mum saying, she'd be looking at the watch, "Ivan, you may hurry up, or we're going to miss this for finishing this rally," you know. So I was sort of stuck between the two stools as to who to listen to, but I sort of kept, every time I slowed down, I kept building the speed up again gradually. But I can clearly remember whenever we got into Letterkenny, or into Letterkenny at the Mount Errigal, as it was known then, or the Ballyrain, maybe it was. It was either Convoy or the full pipe on was just starting to pipe up over the ramp.
Yes.
With Bertie's car coming behind, so we made it in time.
Yes.
So we did, because they didn't actually go to many of the events at that because teletext had just came on stream then, and they were able to watch a lot of the results from teletext, and teletext in our house was a big thing. Like, it never, on the weekend of a rally, it just never went off the screen. Like, you weren't allowed to turn the TV over from teletext. So you weren't.
Yeah. So, you know, rallying then was important to Bertie, but like obviously family and business always took the priority.
Yeah, well, certainly the family and business definitely took priority. I have to say that, you know, certainly the family and business was top of his list, and I'm not sure in what order sometimes, mind you. I would say you need to ask that question to Gladys, but you know, I can safely say it never took priority, and you know, in fact, many times I can remember decisions being made, you know, at the last minute, maybe when all the preparation was done, that, you know, if something became urgent in the business, you know, Bertie would just make the decision. He would just make the decision not to compete, and that'd be that. You know, there would be there'd be no sleep lost over it.
Yeah.
So no, he was. I think he got most things in life right as regards priorities.
Yeah. And Mark and Emma both were heading on for greater things. Mark behind the wheel and Emma and her work for charity and with the church, you know.
That's right. That's right. No, Mark and Emma, they were. I suppose as individuals, they were in a league of their own, really. Like they were, they had actually just had so much to offer. They were both very full of enthusiasm for life. And both knew, I suppose, when the time was right, they both knew how to be able to enjoy themselves as well. Like, but no, they were two great individuals now.
And you went on then to set up the Fisher Foundation, and like that has, to this day is still providing much needed help for the charities that Emma was involved in and in rallying as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. Probably at the end of 2001 or early 2002, the business Fisher Engineering took the decision that we would set up the Fisher Foundation. So we spoke with the Fermanagh Trust, who are still the current managers of the foundation, and the foundation was set up originally by an original investment from Fisher Engineering, and then in later years, or in just after the foundation got up and running, like there came major contributions in from other business associates and just individuals that felt they wanted to contribute, And every year there goes grants out to motorsport safety and overseas missionary and outreach work, and it's still going very well. Yeah, it definitely is. It was.
Yeah, isn't it fantastic to see the legacy that's on all these years later?
That's right.
Yeah. So, like, then, we go forward then a few years and Alistair, took up rallying. Was there a level of expectation on him with the Fisher name, do you think?
Alistair started to rally, and to be quite honest, I don't even remember the start of it all, because he never came and said he just wanted to try rally, and he was out and about quite a bit with Peter and Gary Jennings. So I suppose I would feel comfortable enough maybe in pushing the blame onto them for that. So they were probably as much to blame for, or as much to thank, or whatever way you want to put it.
Yes.
For getting Alistair involved as I was. I think Alistair did his first rally in the co-driver seat, actually, with Peter Jennings, a local stage rally, and then after that, he still wasn't the age for the license, so him and I done a bit of that Rally Sport Association.
Oh yes.
Up at Affaduri and Bluestone Quarries and things like that. So he was showing a bit of promise there, and I think maybe he won a championship or two up there, the junior championship or two up there at the start, and
okay.
And then we turned out. Then we purchased a black Suzuki Swift, which I think was probably, if you're living in Fermanagh, it had to be an ex-Harry Cathcart car.
Yeah, just thinking that. Yeah.
We kept that car running. Jerry McGarty took on to run that car, and it served him well. He done his first stage rally in that car, and he had a very good co-driver in that car too at the start. I think I was the first co-driver there, so that was definitely a big help to him. But he complained afterwards that probably the weight distribution maybe wasn't doing him any favours. So I was the first event. I often wonder, where he would be today if I had stayed on co-driving. Like, who knows how many championships he might have won by now.
This is it. But it must give you a lot of pride to see the way that he's carried on that Fisher name, the way he conducts himself, so professional. It's almost like a mini Bertie or Mark. He's so methodical, so professional the way he conducts himself in a rally car too, isn't it?
He is, yeah. Alice is quite reserved. Like he's pretty quiet, like, and he's a long, hard thinker, and he plans the thing out, and he does a lot of his pre-event preparation is always good, and he goes about things the right way, and we always had the right people around him. He's Gordon, obviously keeping him right within the car, and Jerry McGarty. I have to say, if it wasn't for Jerry McGarty, I don't think Alistair would have come on at the pace he came on at. Like, you know, Jerry was so enthusiastic. Like, Jerry just seen Alistair as another Mark, basically. You know,
Yes.
He couldn't do enough for him, like, you know, and just wanted to be.
Yeah, to drive him.
He wanted to be his mentor, and probably still is his mentor, actually. Yeah.
Brilliant. And then,
so, but no, you know, Alistair's rallying career was and still has been and will be, hopefully, a great time ahead. You know, we got great enjoyment out of the rallying, especially the years in the WRC Academy and the JWRC. Like, you know, you were getting away to events every couple of weeks, and you know, it was great.
And you know, up there competing with the best that, you know, there was, and you know, and certain times it was way ahead of the rest. It was
that's right. Yeah. Oh no, on his day, if he had a good day, like, he was on the, you know, he was going to be hard to beat, certainly. But he
that's for sure. And then, you know, we'll skip forward then to Galway 2020. He finally got that elusive first Tarmac Championship Rally 1.
Yeah.
That was a very special day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was certainly good to get the win. You know, we set out last year, 2020. We said, look, we've tried the championship a lot of times, and we'll give it another go. And you know, if it starts off well, we'll stick at it. But if it doesn't, we'll not bother, because, you know, it's just you know, just ahead all the time. And of course, so Sod's Law, it started off well, and then the championship finished. So it was nice to get the win in Galway and to take the polo out and to take it onto the podium, you know, on his first drive, you know, was good. A very tricky event, mind you. Yeah.
Oh, it was, yeah, that's for sure. And then to have, like, Bertie's great competitor Austin McHale there at the finish line as well. You know,
that's right.
That was a nice touch.
Austin, we would meet Austin and Bernie, you know, at quite a few of the events, actually, Kevin, over the years. Like,
right, yes.
Aaron was back out competing then, you know, and we would bump into Austin and Bernie quite a bit. And of course, you never seen Austin and Bernie without Brian Murphy as well, you know. So it was it was a threesome which we always like to meet up with, you know.
Yes.
And as it was then, just on the last stage of the event, obviously, as you know, congregates at the stop line, and once the word came down from the finish saying that he had won the rally, yeah, Austin, Bernie, and Brian, I would say, were probably the first ones to come up and congratulate us, you know.
Yeah. So
there was a lot of good times with Austin, and then whenever they were both competing.
For sure. The one question I've been asking everybody, you know, the standout memories, you know, the standout memory of your brother, and then, you know, the rally driver as well. Yeah,
well, so I suppose as a brother, obviously with him being the oldest and I was the youngest in the family, I always looked up to him, I suppose, for guidance and advice, you know. It would be fair to say, I suppose, we had pretty much identical personalities to an extent, and you know, with pretty much the same interests with motorsport and music and socialising. I suppose we were probably out of the same mould, I would say. And I suppose, as regards to being a brother again, you know, I think I would have to still blame him for taking me to the local pub for the first time, but I think I had to buy the drink, maybe. Well, that's it.
Yeah, and then I suppose then it was your boss as well too, was he?
Yes, he was the boss as well, which was very important. You know, no, certainly as a man and a businessman and the boss, you know, I was no hesitation in saying, in my eyes, you know, there was none better than Bertie Fisher.
Like everybody that I spoke to, it says, like, right from the top man down to the guy that was driving the forklift or whatever, Bertie knew them by name, and they
at that time was known by their first name and called by their first name. Yeah. You know, he was firm and fair, like, you know, he was very firm boss, but very fair, like, and generous to a fault with everybody, like.
And then the standout as the rally driver then.
Well, now you can imagine over the years there's a lot of standout memories from the rally, and I suppose one that would stand out a lot, mind you, was one of the Manx prize givings in the casino in Douglas. It was the night where he got up and sang. Actually, he sang a song called "Where Have All the Oddies Gone?" They've smashed or broke them all but one. Now that was a 3 or 4 verse song which he composed between the finish ramp and the prize giving ceremony.
Yes.
Obviously, not wanting to offend anybody, or maybe thinking that someday he would end up driving an Audi. Bertie actually spoke to the Audi team management and asked their permission could he sing the song. So they thought at the time it was a great idea. So the song was sang, and I think he got a standing ovation for the song. And I would have to say that, definitely to this day, it was one of the best rally parties ever I probably attended. It was a great night and a great morning.
Yeah, and that just shows that the caliber of the man. Like, it's driving a rally car flat out, jumping out of it, having the wherewithal to think of that, and then to get the okay from the team bosses to make sure it was all right before he would even sing it. So Audi Sport came to the Manx that year, and I think they had 3, if not 4 quattros with them, and they were just beating hands there, and they had. They had plenty of problems as well, but I don't know where he came up with this idea of singing the song, but it definitely went down a treat at the prize given. So I suppose then, Kevin, just for the wind up, maybe just a lifelong lasting memory would have been the last phone call, basically on the Sunday morning. Okay, nice memory to look back on. Ivan, I think that's as nice a place we'll wrap it up there, isn't it? So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Kevin, as I say again, thanks very much for having me on and taking the time to do these shows, because they're definitely very well worthwhile.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Bertie Fisher in the Tough Mac BMW has nothing to lose, so it's maximum attack.
Spotlight was on Ulsterman Bertie Fisher once again. It was his 17th international rally victory and enough to clinch a record 4th Ulster win. Not a bad weekend's work.
Yeah, we had a very good run. We had a bit of a slow start, and then we had a little problem this morning. Didn't really cost any time, but maybe knocked my confidence a little bit. I wasn't concentrating as I should have been, but from then on it's been fine, no problem.
Fantastic. Well done again. Brilliant.
Hold tight, girls. Here comes Bertie Fisher and Rory Kennedy in the Tough Mac Subaru Impreza. Bertie was expected to be favourite, but he wasn't expected to open out almost half a minute's lead after just 4 stages. The Sydney Meeke run Subaru is fastest on every one of the opening tests.
Next up is Sydney Meeke. Sydney was responsible for the preparation of Bertie's cars right from the very early days, right through to the last events in 1999. I started off by asking Sydney how he first got to know Bertie.
Ironically, I met Bertie through his engineering business. I was employed by the drainage division here in Northern Ireland, and we needed some specialised body for lorries, and somebody spoke to me about the Fisher Engineering, and that's where I went and got the job done. That was my first introduction with Bertie, yeah.
So how did that develop then from building lorry bodies to rally cars?
Well, he had noticed that I had been interested in rallying and had built my own, initially a Ford Anglia, which we used to finish 4th in the Northern Irish Championship.
Okay.
And then we had an RS 1500, which we used built to win the Northern Ireland Championship.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And at that time, he was thinking of rallying and doing some events at the Mini. then at some stage, Bertie come to me and he said that I want a Group 1 escort. And we went, and him and I went over to Russell Brooks, and we bought his. His was probably a Thomas Motors car or a work car at that age.
Okay, right, yes.
And we bought that and rebuilt it, and that was Bertie starting into the Ford scene, yeah.
Oh. And up to this, like, you'd only ever been working in your own car, so like Bertie was your first customer as well.
He was really. Bertie had contacts with Ian Cathcart, Roy Cathcart, all those people around in the Skills. And he got me a job of building. Ian Cathcart bought a Maximo Mark 1 Group 4 car.
Okay.
And I got the job of building that into a Mark 2.
Right.
But I don't know, Bertie was the contact, and Bertie was the first man, really. I built his, we built that Brooks' car, and then we changed it into, you probably remember better than I do, but.
Oh, yeah, then, yes, I just moved, I had a couple of Mark 1s and then built a Mark 2 one then, didn't you?
That's right,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I remember going over to David Sutton to get some bits to build the Mark II, and David, a gentleman, but we needed a pedal box in a hurry to make it comply with the first rally Bertie was doing for Group 1 regulations.
Okay.
And David said to Philip on Lumley, he says, take that out of that car you're building and give it to Bertie. We got it, but we were charged maybe 3 times the normal price of it, but I know it was
gone. Probably at that point you just needed it, and that was it, wasn't it? You know.
We needed it, that was it. Yeah.
So, like, he had great success even in the Group 1 cars, and then he took the plunge. But it must have been about 78. Then he took the plunge and won Group 4. He got the ex-Cathcart car, wasn't it then?
First, he bought Roy. Roy had a Group 4 car, and he bought that. We refitted it, brought it into up to date, and yeah, that was the start of the Group 4 escort era.
Yeah. And then was the CIL 999? Was that a car that you just built yourselves in? The next car and
CIL 999 was the next car we built ourselves. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It took one down the route of the Monte escort, one of the Monte Carlo ones. It never seemed to click here in Irish Tower, that car, did it?
No, it seemed a good. Russell Brooks ran it here on the circuit one year, and then it seemed a good idea to go that route. But in fact, that year Russell even finished the circuit of Ireland with it. But car was competitive and on good roads. You know, if you had a good wide tarmac road, it was ideal.
Yes.
But it was run on something like 11-inch rims on the rear.
Okay.
If you got a little, on narrow stages, you were off the road with.
You ran the grass kind of thing, and then it was a struggle.
That's it. Yeah.
Then, as I say, it didn't last too long. But then was that like the red Mark II then, CIL 999? Was that a second coming of CIL, or was that a completely new car again?
I don't want to go into too much detail, but body shells were changed at that time.
Yes.
Registration plates were changed. No, actually abandoned CIL 999 at one stage. We bought a shell off Malcolm Wilson.
Okay.
From to stick everything into to do, I think it was the Ulster Rally or whatever.
Right, yes.
But then we resurrected the old shell. Had time then to get the chassis legs, everything straightened up again.
Right.
and I think that was the end. Whatever event he done, I think it was the 9th he done in that there, and then that was probably the end of CIL. Yeah.
But like, you know, it won the Ulster in '82 in the CIL, the red car. You know, you know, that was a fantastic result then, because you know you were against the best of the Irish guys and the British guys was over that year as well too. So
it was. I mean, if everything clicked, if you just had everything happened at the right time, and Bertie on form. Bertie was always in form. If he had done a small event, maybe a week or 2 weeks before it.
Right. Yes.
And then come the main event, he was on form. You know, and that worked out for the Ulster Rally. Yeah.
He had a wee bit of time in the seat, and he was up to speed then.
That's right.
And then, but by '83, then he had changed the car again. Then it went down Ascona for the first few months. But that was really only a holding station until the Manta came along.
It was originally built for Jimmy McRae by Bowen and Catini.
Okay, right, yes.
And Jerry Buckley might have even driven it at the time, and then Bertie got it. Done a couple. I don't know how many events have done with that car, but then all went into the map. Yeah.
Yeah, I made the debut then in Ireland. Here was Donegal '83.
Donegal was right, the gold card sponsorship from Shell.
Right, yeah, and like, you know, it was going really well, but just bad luck again. Like always with Bertie, always seemed to have a lot of bad luck in Donegal, especially the early years, didn't he? You know. So.
Sometimes simple things, you know. Sometimes just that's the way it went, but. No, Tony Fall was in charge of the whole GM thing in Russellheim, and he come to me, and when he seen Bertie's car at the Isle of Man, the Manta, he said, we need to be helping this guy here. So from then on, Tony Fall was a major help in the Opel scene.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
And it was all because of Bertie, because he was the first one to have, you know, to have that sort of a car and that sort of sponsorship. And
yes. Yeah, it was opening doors for you and for Bertie as well.
Opening doors, sure.
Yeah.
Because Tony Fall then me to go out to Spain to see what they were doing with Spain with the amount of money that Opel were giving them in Spain. And as a result of that, we got 6 years running the Spanish.
That's right, and the kind of late 80s.
Championship and the gravel championship. So
yes.
That was a major thing, and that was all because of Bertie.
Yeah, that all come back to Bertie again too. Yeah, because he was. Yeah.
Plus, it not only come back to Bertie, it come back to all the guys that I had working for me, and sometimes I had 10 or 11. Guys working for me, and they were, I mean, I could run through the names, but I'm going to leave somebody out of it.
That's the thing, yes, but
you know, I had 10 magnificent guys working for me, and it's all about a team effort. We worked night and day, and they worked night and day, and drove night and day, so it was all that whole Spanish program was all because of Bertie, but because of the team as well.
Yeah, he opened the door, but then you were able to step in and make the most of it. Yeah, you just went on then to try to tackle the British Championship and the Irish Championship. Like that was a busy year then as well.
Unreal.
Yes.
Unreal. I mean, we're doing 14 rounds of the Spanish Championship on tarmac. We're doing 8 rounds of the gravel championship in Spain as well.
Right.
And then we're doing what we're doing at home as well.
Yeah. So there wasn't much sleep for a few years then.
There was no sleep. I remember one of the guys working for me. You need to know the guy, Gary Wilson.
Right.
And Gary had a bad impediment in his speech. You know?
Okay.
But we started one Sunday night at 12 o'clock. And we never stopped until the Wednesday morning.
Okay.
And we headed across from the workshop over to the house to get something to eat. And Gary said to me, you know, he says, he always called me Sam for some reason, you know, but if you can imagine him saying, Sam, the birds are singing, I wonder are they going to bed or getting up?
You just didn't know whether it was night or day.
I didn't know that. Unreal. That was the best way it went.
And like you know, Bertie then was his egg at one. Then he lost the brakes in Galway, and like that was, you know, that I think sort of maybe Bertie talked about retiring at that stage and all too, didn't he? He must have got an awful scare.
It could have been a
big accident. Yeah.
It could have been a big accident, and have to hold our hands up. Like, in all fairness, we were fitting these AP brake calipers on a Manta. They wouldn't fit, and we filed the calipers on.
Right.
And we didn't leave radius edge where we were fat away, and that's what happened. It was our fault.
Okay, right.
You know, but that's one of those things we held our hands up and said, right, we shouldn't have done that. But
yes. It'll never happen again, kind of thing, you know. But like Bertie come back then in mid '87, and I think maybe the breakaway done him good because he was back hungrier than ever. Like he come back and he won the Manx National Rally that year, and then as you say, you know, a couple of weeks before Donegal, and then by the time he got to Donegal, he was up for the fight. He led from the start right through.
That's right.
And he got his first. He took his first Donegal one, and then going on even to the Ulster that year against Mark Lovell in the Ford-backed Sierra, and
that's right.
Put a massive battle up to him as well too, didn't he? You know, so.
That's right. I said to you earlier there, like if he'd done something, Bertie's best noble, he was so much involved in his own business that he just had to switch off on a Thursday and then go to do a rally on a Friday or Saturday, Sunday. If he had done something the weekend before, he was more in the seat.
Yes.
Than you know, just switching off and going wasn't so much in his head.
Yes, he was flat out at work to turn all that off and jump into a rally car. Yes.
Yeah. But he introduced me to a few characters, you know, Stephen Finlay, Hugh O'Brien, different guys, you know. But
and well, I suppose then we should skip forward a few years from whenever the Manta era finished, BMW M3 route, like coming from ProDrive.
That's right. We didn't build the car now. ProDrive got into the BMs and they built the car now. We ran it for them.
Yes.
We've done a few tweaks on it and modifications, and maybe someone that ProDrive didn't like, but we made it a bit easier to handle in service areas and things. But no, that car, that was a short probably run of BM, and then we moved into the Subarus.
Yes. And like, you know, like this was some leap forward in technology, wasn't it? 4-wheel drive, turbocharging, like they were some car from the landed at the start, them legacies and all, weren't they? So.
Well, obviously we weren't so much involved. We weren't involved with the car initially,
yes,
because we were doing the Spanish program, and that all we done basically was ProDrive built the car, and we ran it for him on all the whatever events he was doing.
Okay.
Again, you know, no, we didn't have any input into the building of the car or how it was built for Irish rallying or whatever. But it was a different era, just
I think it was and Bertie had, you know, a lot of success in the Subarus over them few years, you know, from '92 on right up through to '99. Like, it's some fantastic battles along, you know, you think the likes of Austin McHale, James Cullen, Andrew Nesbitt, just to name three, never mind the rest, you know. So
Now, as I said to you one other time, you remember all the events, the dates, and how they done and all. Some of the boys at work tell me that I was too interested in writing invoices and not writing down the results.
You could tell me all the parts you did after a certain rally. Bertie brought a level of professionalism to the sport too in Ireland, didn't he?
I did. Yeah. He did, and you know, there was already a level of professionalism there. I mean, Billy Coleman, probably to me, a great friend, known him for 40 years. Very professional as well, you know. But somehow Bertie probably, Billy's era was way back in Thomas Motors days and the early Ford days, and then Bertie sort of come in then after that, and I don't know, you could read about them.
Yes. Yeah, like it's, you know, he brought in like Kieran McNallen was his team manager. You know, all them wee bits and pieces that probably allowed Bertie, just as you talked about earlier, to switch off and jump into the car and just drive and not have to worry about the rest. Like what Bertie was bringing to you as a friend, obviously as well, but as a team. You know, it meant, you know, introduce you to all these people and all these other different things. Just help develop your business, you know. And like that was
no doubt. I mean, when we started, Bertie wanted whatever was new in the car, and I would have gone on to Peter Ashcroft or your man Alan Wilkinson at that time in Ford, and they would give us the update on everything.
Yes.
So we got it. Once we got that and got it in Bertie's car, then Brenton Fagan needed it, Vincent Muller needed it.
Yes.
Sarah needed it. Everybody needed it. Like, so no, it was all hinged on Bertie's.
He led the field and the rest followed.
He led. Well, he was up to date with all. Maybe didn't always work, but he led the development work.
Yeah, and that continued even right through even the Subaru days with ProDrive too, didn't they? He always.
I did that. You know, there was things that you needed to have for Irish tarmac, as opposed to going to do their World Championship and things. You know, it was different wee tweaks you needed over here than you probably didn't need on some of the World Championship events.
Like maybe Corsica or whatever, you know, it was different. Yes. And little did Bertie realise at the time he had a guy that went on to won 5 WRC rallies, changing his wheels for him too, didn't he? You had to earn his keep somewhere or other. Barry, right? Yes. Bertie Fisher, the man, mean to you, and what Bertie Fisher, the rally driver? What's, you know, whenever says something to, you know, Bertie Fisher, there's that, you know, that rally driver. What's the one memory that sticks out to you then?
It's hard to put it into one memory. Like, I mean, Bertie was a few years younger than me, maybe 3 or 4 years younger than me, but for some reason, he was so much in command of his. Anything he said, I never doubted it.
Okay.
You know, there was times he would have critical of me, and in the nicest possible way to put it over, but no, I always looked up to Bertie. He was, education-wise, he was probably a step ahead of me.
Okay.
He was just a gentleman. The whole family was the same, and his style was the same. So, you know, it was just, I don't know how to put it into words, really.
Yes, it done everything in the right way, and it was done correctly. And,
there was nobody nobody had a crossword with Bertie.
In Ballinamallard, you're in the Kingdom of Fisher, and the whole family has turned out to welcome the rally. Although it is still only 7 a.m, Bertie's wife Gladys has already cooked 500 breakfasts, ably assisted by Granny Fisher, who no doubt has reserved a special treat for her son Bertie.
That was Sydney Meeke, Ivan Fisher, and Austin McHale, and myself, Kevin Glendenning, on the part 1 of this Bertie Fisher tribute. The second part will be out in the next few days, and in that I will speak to Nigel Fraser, Kieran McAnallen, Ivan Fury, and Gordon Noble. Can you please like and share it on all social media platforms? And if you're listening to an Apple podcast, can you please rate the podcast? It's greatly appreciated. Until the next time, take care and speak soon. Bye.